I see the war zone in the background. I won't be too long. Don't worry. I'll let you get
No,
back.
you're good, bro. You're good.
That's a fire sweatshirt, by the way. That's an awesome sweatshirt.
Appreciate it, bro.
Board man gets paid. Love that.
Shout out to New Balance.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so kind of just jumping straight into it. It's been a little weird. This whole thing going on. I just want to know, like, what's the workout regimen been like going into it?
Yeah.
First going into it and like up until now. Like, is it you guys meeting? Doing pitchers meeting stuff like that, or what's going on?
Well, for us, it's been, no one really knew how long it was going to be, what it was going to necessarily entail in terms of how long we'd be home and away from, like, our strength coaches and our pitching coaches and all that. So when we first left, our, like, last meetings in Florida were just about, like, staying in contact. They kind of tried to give us, like, a blueprint for things they thought we should be doing in terms of how many times on the mound a week, this, that. And that's changed a lot since we left just because – when we first thought it was going to be like a week, two, whatever. We had no idea, but that's what they were talking about. And now it's obviously been a month and a week already, and it's not looking like it's going to be any – we're probably going to be gone for at least 2.5 months from when we would have left Florida. So for me right now, I'm not necessarily doing what a bunch of other guys are doing because I'm pretty lucky I have access to a facility I can go there by myself and throw and lift, and I have a key to it. So there's nobody else necessarily in there. And so it's basically like it's my own little place, and I've got, Rapsodo, full mound to work off of,
Nice.
and pocket throw into, plyo wall. I got a full weight room. So, I mean, like, I'm pretty fortunate in that. So, I mean, I throw 6 days a week. I get off the mound twice a week. And I lift 4 or 5 days a week. So, I mean, my workout regimen's been pretty consistent. And honestly, I'm lifting more than I would be in season anyway. And it's been kind of nice for me coming off my foot injury. I had surgery this past off season, and I had a fractured bone in the middle of my foot. I fractured it during last year, and I ended up pitching on it and making it a lot worse.
So the more time, the better right now for you.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, like, yeah, it sucks. This is going on a lot, but personally, for my situation, career-wise, baseball-wise, like, this has given me a little bit of a break to really, because I thought I was more ready than I was when I went down to spring training, but I wasn't ready. I was pitching that. It's just my body wasn't there yet. And, I've just seen improvements even since I got home on the way my foot feels and the way I'm able to push off it and just trust it in general. And so it's been good for me. I mean, I've made some progress with the way I'm throwing my sinker and just feeling confident in the pitches that I throw. So it's been good.
Are you like at like a set like number of pitches? Like, are you staying at like 30 pitches or like 60 pitches?
Yeah. No. For me, it's I throw Tuesday, Friday bullpens.
Okay.
Tuesday, and we're between 15 to 25. Usually right around 20. Not at 100% effort. And then Friday's pen is 100% effort day, between 25 and 30 pitches. And so I've just been trying to maintain that workload because the way I look at it is what this quarantine does is obviously affects us here some, and it'll limit the number of games we play or whatever. But if you treat it like this, like if you don't have the ability to get in, obviously you can't help it. But if you can, and you have the ability to treat it like we're still playing a little bit this year, and I'm getting my normal innings in, get my normal work in, obviously it's not the same intensity or the same number of pitches because that's – why would you do that to yourself if you didn't have to?
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I get on the mound twice a week and throw 50 pitches at pretty good intensity, then once the offseason does come this year, it'll be pushed back, obviously, compared to what it would have been otherwise. But when it does come, I could take my normal rest of, a week or two and get back into throwing again. And then it's like, for me, then my body would not be freaking out, wondering what the hell's going on. When in reality, I didn't get to have a full season, but I treated it like I almost did. So then it doesn't mess me up for 2021, which is where I think a lot of guys and people aren't really thinking about right now. And it's hard to, obviously, but with baseball especially, it's a very specific sport to where you do the same thing repetitively over and over and over again.
Long period, man.
And so throwing is an unnatural motion. And if you take a lot of time off, studies are starting to show, like, throwing year-round is a good thing if you throw in moderation when you have your downtime and you take it slow, you build up. But if you never if you like take a bunch of time off this year, leading the next year, it's going to give your arm a longer dead period. I think there'll be a lot more injuries next season because of what's going on now. I think it'll affect 2021 a lot more than people think, and so I'm trying to avoid that. My pitching guy back here, his name's Sam Weber. He's my pitching coach. he kind of planted an idea in my head, and I think he's right. So that's what I've been trying to roll with.
Yeah, no, it's something that like it's probably like on the back burner of a lot of people's minds right now. They're not really thinking about it, but it's something to think like, your bodies have been tested for this, year after
Yeah,
year, and then you get this little period that's like, okay, what's gonna happen now? So it to me it takes me back to like summer ball, those summer ball days when you're playing every single day. You maybe get 3 off days.
yeah,
You know what I mean, in the summer, and it's like competitive throwing, and then going from your season to that, it's like it can be a little wonky. You know what I mean? So that's
yeah.
like how I'm kind of looking at it right now.
No doubt. That's why a lot of college coaches don't like summer ball for that exact reason, where you don't get your normal rest when you're a college player. That's normal for that type of season. It's obviously different than pro ball, but they don't like it because for pitchers especially, like let's say you're a starter, you throw your 120 innings in season, 100 innings, let's say.
Yeah.
Then you go to summer ball and you throw 40 more instead of getting all the rest that you would have gotten if you taken time off and just giving yourself some time and then getting back and throwing off a mound indoors or in a facility, whatever it is. That's where the summer ball argument in a lot of summer leagues are starting to struggle, is because coaches don't want to send pitchers there. And I can't blame them, because it's exactly what you're saying. Like it is an every other day, everyday type thing, and you're throwing a lot, and those guys don't have the same stock in you that your coaches have in season.
Mhm.
So it's the same idea, it's just a little different.
Yeah, no, like I look at the I looked at the Northwood schedule, and they still have their 2020 schedule out, and
Oh, that's wild, bro.
they start May 26th and don't finish their regular season until August 8th.
Dude, like if you go in the playoffs or whatever,
It's
some kids play their last game and they go to school the next day.
It's
That's
literally
it.
it's 44 like 44 plus games. It's unbelievable. And like
It's wild.
it's interesting because I know like MLB's trying to stack so many games,
Yeah, it's
within such a short amount of time, and they're obviously gonna have to expand the rosters, I think, just to make
yeah.
up.
My personal opinion, it'll end up being anywhere between 30 to 33 guys probably on rosters, which is what we'll need for sure, because if they're going to play a bunch of doubleheaders, all these games, and try and get we're not going to get 162, and I don't think anyway. But let's say we try and get even 120 in the 2.5-3 month period that'll be left at best when we get back. That's still, I mean, it's an enormous strain you're going to put on your bodies, and they're going to have to give us like ample time for another spring training to try and get ready. And guys won't be as ready as they would have been otherwise. Starters won't be able to go as deep. And so more guys are going to be needed. That's the nature of the beast. It's what it's going to be, whether anybody likes it or not. So it's the same idea. Like, you have to give guys time off. You have to give guys rest, or else it's going to affect us way more in the next 1-2 years than it does even right now, than you could really understand, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard because at the time it happened, baseball was like just about ready, to like start in full gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's just like, okay, now you're shutting down, and then your arm goes from that kind of down into it, and in that little lull. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going through. Was my arm was just finally starting to feel decent. It was not feeling going after, because I usually, my off season program looks like I'll take a week or two off from throwing and get back into it just lightly. And I start throwing before most guys do in the off season, because I've seen just the premier starters across Major League Baseball don't take a lot of time off.
Yeah.
And they just try and throw year round, because you just keep your arm moving. It's not so you're throwing 100%, you're not doing that, but you're keeping it moving. And so I've tried to mimic that in the way I do things. But this offseason, I couldn't do anything for 3 straight months with my foot. I was on the couch. And so it was very different for me. My arm felt like crap at the beginning of spring training. I was finally starting to get to where it was feeling okay. And then you're exactly right. Boom.
It's like, it's like, what's going to happen now? But, at least they gave you that extra little, kind of time with your foot and everything. So,
no, definitely.
what have you been doing to stay sane, man? It's like, you can only play so much the show, man. Until my brain starts turning to mush. What have you been doing?
We actually got a dog 5 days after we got back, and we've been wanting to for a while, and it was the perfect time to, we'll both be here. We'll both be home all day. We'll be able to, train it a little bit and try and, because with our lifestyle, especially like moving all the time, this is some of the most stable times that we'll probably get them. So it was the best time for us to get one. A couple of my teammates have done it too, Mitch Keller and Will Craig. And so once Will got one, we were kind of like, yeah, we definitely need to now. And then Mitch saw we got one, and he got one. And so like, it's been great having him. It's a lot of fun. And so it's kept us busy for sure. He's got an abundance of energy, and he does not like to sleep long to the night. So yeah,
What's his name?
Louis.
Louis. Any
Yeah,
reasoning behind Louis, or just
we're from St. Louis. It's just
gotcha?
keep it around whenever we get out of town and we're moving around and all that. And we like the name. So yeah,
My first dog's name was Babe, so because Babe Ruth in it. It's
yeah,
not that original, but it's the same thing.
yeah.
Did you watch the Jordan documentary? I know you were tweeting about it a little bit.
Oh, dude, I've been loving it. It's been
Awesome, right?
the first two that night. I was just like, just please get me all late right now. Like I'll pay $100. Like I'll sit here all night and watch it. I'll pay for it. And it's been great. Those stories they've got, the way those teams are ran, it's so different than professional sports now. It's absolutely wild to think the stuff they got away with and just the way they could do things that it's so different than things done now. It's really cool.
The mentality, like I just love hearing the mentality of Jordan. Like he was willing to like put up with kind of some shady stuff as long as like, all right, you guys are winning, and that it just speaks to the type of guy he was. Just always
when it all costs, man. When it all costs.
And it's amazing because like I actually got to see him play. I was lucky enough. It was awesome. He was with the Wizards. He was kind of a shell of what he was, but like still, I remember like being at the Garden, just like witnessing, being like, hey, like this is pretty cool. Like there's certain guys you just got to see like.
Oh, if you can, you got to. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's like there's always that argument, the Jordan versus LeBron type thing, and I've never seen either one of them play in person, but that legend that comes along with MJ, and I've watched a lot of his old games, and now obviously this coming out. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is people these days don't understand that social media was just not as big then as it is now, obviously.
Yeah.
And so think about how crazy the phenomenon of him would have been had this been his time. Think about that. Like, he basically has the same recognition that a guy like LeBron has, and there was no internet then. No one, it was word of mouth. It was watching the news next day on TV. It was going to see him in person. You weren't seeing live video highlights the entire night when he had a dunk, when he had 65, whatever it was. Like, he'd be making crazy headlines. His brand would be worth 10 times what it is if he was going through it right now. Like Zion. Like, that's the same idea. It's just it's wild to think he had that big of a grip on people in that sport when you either saw him in person, you read about it in the newspaper, or you maybe saw it on the news.
Yeah, like, the one thing that like made like international, I think, was that shoe brand. You know what I mean? Like him, that like kind of blew up, and like to him thinking about knowing like, hey, like me starting to do this now, kind of setting that up like to grow into what it was. Is, I don't think anyone could have saw like the potential that it had.
Yeah, I just heard a story about when he was coming out of North Carolina, and it was Adidas first. I don't care if it was in the documentary or not, or if I saw it on Twitter or some other place. Just his agent talking about Adidas offering him a deal versus Nike offering him a deal. And Adidas basically, they wouldn't create his own custom shoe line for him, and Nike said they would, and that's the reason they went with them, even though he wanted to go with Adidas. And so think about how big of a mess up that was on Adidas' part, how much more money they'd have.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, because he took Nike off. He took Nike from nothing to something, basically. Like,
and it's crazy. It's awesome to see how the shoe pertains to the games, the iconic moments.
Crazy.
Like, dude, growing up, I had all, we had all matching Jordan, stuff like that. And like, the flu games, you're like, oh, those are from that game, and like it's how they became, iconic with. I wish baseball, Clint Frazier does it a little bit.
Yeah.
He did a little last year,
he does. He got some swag going, custom cleats, for sure.
He turns the shoes into custom cleats, which is pretty cool. But he says, he's like, dude, it's expensive. Like, I'm not making that much money.
Stupid expensive. Like, I just got my first pair of shoes custom cleated, and I'm with New Balance. So they sent us Kawhis at the beginning of spring training, and I sent them immediately in to go get custom cleated. It's another $140, $150, whatever it is, to put on that. So, I mean, if you're spending the money on your own J's, it's $250 a pair plus that's a $400 for each pair of cleats you're putting on it. Let's say he goes out and plays in the mud, they're ruined. Yeah. I mean, you can get them cleaned up a little bit, but I mean, they're ruined for the most part. So I mean, that's an expensive endeavor, but I guess it's worth it for the cloud, I suppose.
It sucks because the shoes are so nice, and like it's like, oh man, you're playing on dirt, man. You're playing
dude. That's why for me as a pitcher, like putting pitcher's toe on it kind of ruins it in general anyway. If you're gonna do some Jordan or something like that, so like, because I would just destroy a pair of I don't have my tennis shoes I throw with like on indoor turf don't have pitcher's toe on them, and like a week and a half, I mean, the front's gone of it. That's how I drag when I throw. So I mean, they'd be just murdered. Wouldn't be worth it for me.
Stick to the Jordans on the golf course.
Yeah, absolutely.
the low cut 11s. That's a nice look.
Although I get those pretty dirty when I'm looking for my ball in the woods anyway, so it's about the same problem.
And are the golf clubs? I'm not golf clubs. The golf course is open by you or no?
So there's the private country clubs, like
Mhm.
technically you can't shut them down or whatever. But I mean, yeah, everything's closed down other than that, and it's just weird. I don't know. It's wild.
No, I know it's just I don't know. You go outside, it's just a weird thing. Like it's a good transition too, because I was gonna say, like with their new like MLB new plans, that's it's playing mostly gonna be playing with no fans. I think this year it's
Yeah,
I think it's kind of unavoidable until maybe the postseason when
yeah.
when things get a little better. But like for now, I see playing with no fans. Like, how does that change? I don't know if you remember the game from the Orioles when they had to play with no fans.
Oh yeah,
You
Camden
know what I
Yards.
mean? And it
The
was like
riots.
you can
The
hear the
riots.
stuff, and it was like it was kind of surreal. But how do you feel like playing with no fans like that?
It's one of those things where I don't think you really appreciate how much the fans, the energy they bring to the stadium,
Mm,
until it's gone. And I've never played like when you're playing high A in the Florida State League. There's like 50 people in the whole stadium. It sucks,
yeah.
but you accept that fact because it's minor league baseball and you know it. So when you are in the big leagues, it's like, I mean, I can't even really being in PNC Park that holds 45,000 people or whatever, and
Beautiful.
having it completely empty would just be wild. Like it would, and just the eerie quietness. It takes something to get used to, and it would
Mhm.
suck. But I mean, if that's what has to be done, it's what has to be done. And also, we might not even be playing in PNC. Like if we're down in Florida or Arizona playing wherever, that'll make it easier. So stadiums aren't as big, but it'll still be weird. I mean,
Mhm.
but it is unavoidable. I agree. It's one of those things where if we do get to play baseball this year, there'd be no point to having fans in there. Just even if this curve went way, way down,
Yeah. The logistics of
people
it
that close
is
just
hard.
makes no sense. Yeah, just makes no sense. It's not worth it, in my opinion. I don't even know if sports are worth it right now. Honestly,
Yeah.
we'll see how it gets to and see if it's worth the risk and all that. And it's a huge business, so it's crazy that it has knocked stuff down like this because if football shuts down, man, I mean, the NFL doesn't shut down for anything. Like
Yeah, I
they
like
don't, the
I
show
can't
don't
imagine
stop.
college
It's the
football
NFL.
without fans. Like I don't.
SEC? Are you kidding me? Like what? It's gonna be weird, weird,
Yeah.
weird, weird.
And that's where they make their money too. And they're starting to give the likeness rights to their players now too. And it's
Yeah,
just like a whole domino effect that's months ahead right now. That's it's just kind of wild. And I mean, I'm sure we played those college games in a cold Missouri day, and no one's in Lindenwood. So
yeah.
trust me, I've been there. There's maybe three
I've played
people.
my fair share of games in front of no fans. Don't get me wrong, I've done that. So,
But they bring that intensity, and like I hope for a postseason, that there's some type of fans, but they're starting to do it in the Korean leagues, and
yeah,
at least play music or something, get something hype, during the
you
season.
gotta get some crowd noise or something there because I mean, there's nothing worse than just being deadly quiet. Like it's, I don't know. It's and like going back to college football, those crowds are 110,000 people. Like the energy that's in that stadium. And I feel like football players and like a lot of performers just feed off of that for a lot of the juice that gets going. Like if you're not feeling great that day, it's happened to me a lot of times. Like my foot wasn't feeling good last year, my shoulder wasn't feeling good, whatever it was. When you get your name called to get up and start warming up or whatever the first couple throws don't feel great. Then whenever you think you might go in the game and you take that first step onto the field, I mean,
Heart's pumping
completely
every time.
completely irrelevant what hurts.
Mhm.
It doesn't. You don't feel it. The adrenaline you get, like it does not matter. It's doing the job to go out there and get what you need to get done, and that comes from. I mean, when you hear just the buzz when you're coming on, it's a situation that you're coming into, whatever it is. Those guys, we all feed off of that kind of thing, and so getting yourself up for the third day in a row you might have to pitch when you aren't feeling good, it ain't going to be the same with
Mhm.
nobody in the stands cheering you on, so I think that's something that's no one understands really either, and we don't know how to work out because for closers, guys that might pitch 4 days in a row,
Mhm.
that fourth day is pure adrenaline, pure juice, just trying to roll out there and get the job done. And guys aren't going to be as good if they don't have that. I'm an adrenaline pitcher. I get a lot of my velocity from that. I can sit indoors and I'll top out at 1993, and then I get into a
2
game.
or 3 mile an hour or pad.
Exactly. Dude, it's wild. Like it's crazy how it happens, and I don't know if that'll be there. If fans aren't in the stands, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's home field advantage is just doesn't become a
Oh,
thing this year.
it's irrelevant. Yeah,
You know
it's
what I mean?
irrelevant. Yeah, it's why
So
divisions and like playing all your schedule and has having to play the Cubs or the Cardinals 20 times. Like it doesn't matter at that point because there's not going to be any fans anyway. So just bang the divisions and separate us by location. Whoever's closest plays each other. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about separating it in like Texas, Florida, and Arizona in like the beginnings, kind of their
Yeah,
spring training facilities, and then like migrating back to their home stadiums just so they're
yeah,
kind of comfortable. But they kind of came out with like, I don't know if you saw it, the 3-team division.
yeah. I saw that.
So like, and it's interesting because the Pirates move into the East Division,
Yep.
and you get that whole Mets, Boston, Yankees, and
It's probably where we should be anyway. Because I mean, think about it. It's who's on our side of the country. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
So
But
I
it's
like,
that would be crazy. And when the first one that came out was still, I think, separated 4 ways, and
uh,
Boston and New York were in the same thing. And I saw people just freaking out about, you're gonna tell me that Boston and New York aren't gonna play all season long, blah blah. This isn't gonna be real baseball. Same with Cardinals, Cubs. People freaking out about it, like, and I get that. And it's, I mean, I get, are the Mets and the Yankees, they have the same one, right? Mets,
yeah.
Yankees,
So
Boston.
everything on the Eastern,
Yeah,
like they're gonna have all them play each other, which I mean, hypothetically, and like, because I think it was like the Braves and they moved you guys to the East, and then the Braves moved to the Central, because you guys are kind of actually more East than Atlanta a little bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, like, does that like change like mentally for you as like a pitcher, knowing like, okay, now you're facing like these guys, these types of teams more
Yeah.
than you know what I mean? Like you're gonna
Oh,
face.
yeah, dude. There's a difference between National League Baseball and American League Baseball for sure.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that'd be interesting that would come from it is this might push them towards a universal DH quicker than anything else could have done. Uh, and I personally, and a lot of bullpen guys would probably tell you, we like playing those American League games because in the National League game, let's say we're down by 3 runs and we're up by 3 runs, whatever it is. The pitcher spot's coming up. We've got a guy on base, 1 out. If this guy, the manager calls down, he says, if this guy gets a hit here, he's in the game. If he doesn't get a hit, we don't score more runs, he's in the game. So 2 guys are warming up. Only one guy goes in, and you might get, we call it getting dry humped.
Yeah.
If you don't go in, it might happen 3 or 4 times in a night. That does not happen when you play American League team for the most part because situations aren't the same. There's no pitcher coming up spot to get hit for. The only thing that might change is you might be up by 2, and all of a sudden you score 4 runs in an inning. Then a different guy's probably going to go in. But that you still have ample time to get loose at that point. So it's not as big of a deal, and it saves a lot of bullets, man. So I'm all for that. And it does suck facing, probably a much bigger bat in that lineup than he would have otherwise in the pitcher. But for me as a reliever, if you don't come into the 5th, 6th, 7th anyway, you're usually facing the designated hitter or a pinch hitter at that point anyway. So it wouldn't change much for me, and I don't think you would hear a lot of bullpen guys be against it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because it makes the decision making kind of more easier, like you
Yeah.
said, and it's
Oh, it takes the manager's job out of the equation a lot. Yeah, it really does.
and especially with a jam-packed schedule, what they're talking about, kind of condensing everything. I wouldn't want my pitcher even going to take a swing.
Nope.
Like,
Yeah,
there's no
I'm
point
with
in
you.
it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I agree. Even more so.
It would be a nice kind of change of pace just to have the DH kind of all across the board.
Yeah,
For
I
this
agree.
season. It's fun. They're gonna get a lot of things to play with that they wanted to implement,
Yeah.
and like kind of play with it and manipulate it. So it's definitely going to be, interesting. I just wanted to see your take because I know the Pirates are moving there. It's going to be like, wow, I'm going to have to face this team over and over again. It could, it's kind of a mental, but you said,
I was looking forward to this year. The AL East was on our schedule, and so I was going to get to go, Boston, New York, Toronto, all those teams. And now we won't get to, obviously, but it is still cool to face those teams. There's just such a history, and it's the freaking Red Sox. It's freaking Yankees. It's whatever. So I mean, it's cool. It's like last year going to play the Astros down in Houston. Like it's World Series chance, man. Like it's pretty cool stuff. And so when you get those opportunities, it's always fun to just try and really take it in what you're getting to do.
Well, you got to look at it too. It's like they have the Astros in the I think the Dodgers division too.
I saw that.
You know what I mean? So it's like championship teams going against championship teams. It's as much as it's interesting and weird to look at, from a baseball standpoint, because it's so traditional. It's cool to see these new rivalries and games kind of form that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Teams that would only face in the champion, World Series are going to be in the regular season. So
yeah,
cool, man. It's cool.
it is.
But as long I keep saying, as long as we have baseball this year, as long as sports, everything's in play for it to be safe for everyone involved. You know what I mean? So it's always a good sign. They're starting to play in the Asian countries, which is really good. We kind of see that framework. We can kind of
Yeah.
build off of it.
It's just all about, I think, listening to if we do get down there and we do get to start practicing playing whatever it is, if guys like Fauci, or I don't know a lot of their names, but people who know what they're talking about, come out and say, hey, we foresee this coming, this hitting us in the next 2-3 weeks, whatever it is. It has to be on the owners and the MLBPA and all the other ownerships across other leagues that say, hey, we have to be smart about this. And, money is lost at that point, but human lives are more important. So they have to be able to, yes, we are playing right now, but everything is tentative. Like, just because this game's guaranteed that you're playing tonight doesn't mean 2 weeks from now we're going to still be playing.
Yeah.
I think you should go into it with that mindset that you be flexible and understand that stuff can change with this because it's something we haven't dealt with in a long time, and that it's obviously like we're on the downhill side of it, but it could come back. I've heard multiple things about how the curve might come back once it gets cold out, and so I mean, you just never know. I don't know what'll happen. I'm not an infectious disease doctor.
Yeah, no, it's there's still a lot of unknowns. It's kind of like a skeleton type of plan. Like what happens if a player gets it down the road?
Yeah.
You're 2 weeks into your season and then the player has it. How does that whole thing affect the games being played and the shutdown? So it's
Well, exactly, and they're talking about like taking our temperature every day when we walk in, a bunch of different testing like daily, and like that'll suck. But I mean, it's something you're probably gonna have to do if you want us to be able to be there together playing games like that. And the biggest thing that would be awful out of this is every player's families wouldn't be allowed to be with them, and so we basically be sequestered and quarantined ourselves, where there'd be buses to pick us up from a hotel, take us to the field, take us straight back. And people sit there and say, blah, blah, whine about it. That doesn't suck. You're making a lot of money. Sure, I get that argument. I really do. And we're playing a game. It's fun. But, it's I don't have any children, but for guys who have kids or guys who have loved ones who are sick, this and that, like.
It's hard.
Just for me not being able to see my wife or my dog now for maybe 3-4 months, like that would suck. That no one should have to do that if they don't have to. But I guess now with the situation we're in currently, it might come with territory being a professional baseball player. So one of those things you might have to accept.
Yeah, no, it speaks volumes, because when you hear guys like Mike Trout, like if what's baseball without one of its biggest stars, he's saying like it's hard to go away from my family, that's why he kind of they're trying to work.
He's having a kid in August. Like, you kidding me? If he does go home to see the kid when it's born, which he's going to want to do, that's an automatic 14 days once he goes home that he's got to sit out. I just it's hard to fathom this league happening with guys who are going to have to do that. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But that's where I guess the 33, 35-man roster would come into play, where, next man up is the situation to lead to. And they might have a reserve of like AAA/40-man guys who aren't on the roster in Florida or Arizona practicing at their facility, playing practice games, so that if that does happen, they could call the guy up. So, no, I mean, there's smarter guys than me trying to figure all this out. So they'll figure out something, but it will be very interesting to see what it actually is and what it looks like.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknown factors at this point, but it's nice to know that there's at least a framework, kind of behind it.
They're trying. There's no doubt they are trying to get baseball back. They're doing everything.
So I mean, I hope that at a certain point they'd be able to get back to their home fields, just so they can actually go home, to their actual homes, stuff like that, so it makes it easier. So I mean, but we'll never see, but. In the meantime, we'll play Warzone tournaments, right?
Yep, absolutely. No doubt
How'd you guys
about
doing that?
We got 8th out of 20, I think. So I mean, respectable. But the top team was on a different level. They're not invited back to the tournaments just because they're so damn good. But I think they're talking about making it like a league almost, where we play like once a week in a tournament and just trying to keep it going. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's just something to do. And,
Nice.
My wife doesn't necessarily love me playing for Call of Duty for 5 hours on a Saturday night, whatever it is. But, it's got to find something to do, compete a little bit these days. So we enjoyed it a lot.
Something. I personally haven't played Warzone yet. I'm tentative to get into it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be – I mean, I loved Apex. And everything. Apex was fun, Fortnite guy, so I don't know. It seems too intense for me. When shit starts hitting the fan, I get nervous.
Dude, it gets wild. It's absolutely extremely intense, and like I was tired just after that tournament that night. We did 5. It was a 5-hour deal, and so just trying to, or no, it was 4 hours. Sorry, but trying to stay locked in for those 4 hours and just push and try and get as many points as we could. And we were, just communicating the whole time. Like, we were being dramatic about it. And we were, calling stuff
Oh,
out. Like
trust me, I know. You get the headset, you're fully locked in. It's like, all right, go
yeah,
touch me, go talk to me. Just
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was kind of cool, like I said, to just compete a little bit and, like that little rush of trying to beat somebody else. You miss that a little bit when you aren't able to do it for a while.
Oh, absolutely. We got that competitive nature. It's like, even what they're doing with the MLB, the league, and everything,
Yeah.
it's something, to keep
Yeah.
us, engaged and kind of our minds off of everything. So
No doubt.
it's nice, man. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. We got a good bit here, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate the conversation.
If there's anything else you want to ask, I got a couple more minutes. If there's anything else you had, if you don't, it's fine too. I don't care.
Well, I mean, one of the things I wrote down here, we can kind of talk into, what was like your biggest transition going from like college to that next step, minors and majors and stuff like that?
I think the biggest thing, the difference between college and pro ball is that it does go from being, something you do, and some guys do get paid for it in terms of a scholarship. But your biggest priority, or what it's supposed to be, I guess, technically, is the schooling side of things when you're in college. Your college coaches do run your life, and they kind of control what you can and can't do, and they usually run pretty tight ships in college sports. When you get to pro ball, it is then all of a sudden your job. You do get paid to do that, and there is some ownership that comes along with that. And for me, I already kind of understood that and took it upon myself to make it what I was doing, and I knew how seriously I wanted to take it. And that's probably the biggest thing, is just the freedom that comes along with just, you're gone from wherever you have been. So you're getting a paycheck to play baseball, and all you have to do is technically show up to the field and play. Now, you should be working out. You should be trying to eat right. You should be trying to get sleep, this and that. There's a lot of intangibles that are just, you can do whatever the hell you want for the most part. That's hard to get used to, and some guys can't handle it. That's one of the biggest things in terms of just the general lifestyle of it. But in terms of baseball on the field stuff, as a pitcher, it's the only viewpoint I can speak from. But the biggest thing is just the higher you go through the levels. When you first got into pro ball, there was a lot of younger hitters, Dominicans, Venezuelans, overseas guys who murder fastballs. And so it's figuring out how not to get eaten alive without an off-speed pitch, figuring out an off-speed pitch, figuring out how to pitch in the zone, while also knowing situations where if this guy comes up, screw it, walk him. It is what it is. Let him get on base, get the next guy. There's just a level of pitching that as you get to, low A, high A, double A, triple A, and eventually the big leagues, it evolves in how you attack guys, conceding some things, accepting that he might beat you at that, so you got to do this. And just understand that mistakes get hit. You can't be scared to make a mistake, but understanding that, if that fastball leaks over the middle of the plate, if that slider hangs, it's going places you don't want it to go. It happened to me multiple times this year where I threw an okay slider and I was like, hell yeah, let's do it again. And then I tried to be perfect with it, and I hung it. Looking over your shoulder a little bit as it flies out of the park, it's not a fun feeling. So it's a trial and error type thing. You learn as you go. But I'd say the biggest thing is just that, along with consistency. The name of the game, and how because when you're climbing through the minor leagues, it's to go to the next level, to get promoted, to get this, to get that, to do a little bit better. Because the big leagues, it is purely about staying. It's about figuring out how to be there for the long term, make money for you and your family also, but also just be the best you can be. And that's hard, man. Consistency is so hard, and I've gotten such an appreciation that I didn't have before for these guys who've done it forever. My best example is probably Francisco Liriano. Me and you guys who are baseball guys know him, but I mean, he was a stud back in the day with the Twins. He's moved around quite a bit, had a lot of jobs. Just a freaking pro, man. He was in the bullpen with me last year with the Pirates. Just to hear the way he talks about things, to watch him go about his business. He's been doing it, like I said, for 14 straight years in the big leagues.
Amazing.
He gets in there every day, earlier than most guys do. He's on the bike for an hour. He's lifting. He's super concentrated. And, he's having conversations in the bullpen during the game. He's joking around, messing around, but he's always locked in, and he's always ready to roll, and just a super pro about everything. And you can learn a lot from guys like that, and just the way they night in and night out, you can count on them to do what they can do. That's something I'm not there yet in terms of just being absolutely consistent. But that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
different level. There are guys who are really really good at this game, freaks. But if
Hmm.
you can't be consistent, it doesn't translate to the big league level. And that is probably the biggest thing is teams pay you to do it all the damn time, not most of the time, not half the time.
Hmm.
So that's figuring that out, learning that lesson the hard way. It was a good thing. I'm excited to try and get to be that guy.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's about repeating that success, and you see the guys that repeat that success, they get compensated for it.
You get paid, man. Yeah.
It is not, it is not easy, and
I don't know. It's so freaking hard. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, just
especially for 14 years, that's like a long period of like
it's wild.
acceptance of new information you're getting. You
Yeah.
know, 14 years, a guy seeing you hit, it's like
Yeah. And
how
I'm
many?
not saying he's had a 3 every year he's pitched.
Hmm.
Let's say he had a 6 or a couple bad years, whatever it was. He obviously did enough to reinvent himself a little bit, figure some things out, get back to the drawing board, and just start from square one, maybe, and come back a better pitcher because he's gotten a job again. He got a job again this year with the Phillies for a couple $1 million. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't just happen by accident. Those guys have a plan. They executed at a really high level, and I have the utmost respect for guys that have done it for a long time. It's a pleasure to see guys do that. And, I was on team with Brian Reynolds, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates from the National League last year.
Hmm.
Kevin Newman as well, both two young guys who had really, really, really good years. They gained a lot of respect for that. Pete Alonso as well with the Mets.
Hmm.
Now, it's a short-term memory game, right? What have you done for me lately? You come out this year, you don't have a great year. People act like, you were never good, which is ridiculous because they were unbelievable last year. But
Hmm.
you got to come out, you got to show it again. And then next year, you got to show it again. It's not one of those things where you did this, you're good. It's boom, 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 boom. It never stops until you call it quits. It's a crazy thing. It's a hard thing I didn't really understand until I got to that level where it's just you have to keep doing it and keep showing it and keep proving it.
Hmm.
There are very few guys who get to get a big contract like that and coast in the last couple of years and not be elite anymore. No
Hmm.
one wants to do that, but it does happen where guys get paid way too much and it ends up being the back end hurts another team really bad. But, guys who can make it worth their while for that team, I mean, it's impressive. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's all about like evolving, and it's like I love looking at it from like both ends of the spectrum. Like you could be, an MLB veteran guy. 7 years later, you got to reinvent yourself. You develop a nice, cutter that may give you three more years, 2 more years,
Yeah,
of success. And then like you said, with the young guys, they come in, they get off to such a hot start, and then people start to see like, oh, okay, this is how I get him out. Now
yeah,
you got to look at yourself and say,
exactly.
you know what I
Exactly.
mean? I'm
They
like,
know what pitch you throw 75% of the time to this count, whatever it is. They absolutely know what's coming a lot of the time, whether not even with cheating. Like they know a lot of things. There's so much data out there that they've got everything on you. And
mm-hmm,
so it's absolutely about reinventing yourself. And especially for the longer you play, you can't throw 100 anymore usually when you're 33 as opposed to when you're 26, whatever it is. Unless you're Nolan Ryan, just an absolute freak, Randy Johnson, whatever it is. Like those guys kept doing it. Most guys can't. And so it's learned how to be maybe a thrower versus a pitcher. Bartolo Colon's a perfect example of a guy who threw really hard when he first came up. By the time at the end of his career, he was throwing 86 to 88 mile-an-hour sinkers and just throwing almost no hitters going to the seventh inning. Like it's just wild how guys like that do it, and it's really cool to a testament to the way they go about things. It really is.
yeah, it's crazy how you can see, going from college to, pro ball, it's even the tiniest mistakes are going to get hit. You know what I mean? You may get away with them, in college, but just that 1 inch off or stuff like that, and it's like you said, it's so much information being thrown at you. Like, did you feel kind of overwhelmed getting all this information at once, or just like, because I know when we were playing,
Yeah.
we didn't really use Rapsodo in college, like we didn't
Nope.
get that firsthand like experience of like learning the numbers, learning like what this and this does, unless you went to Driveline.
And I think it can really be overwhelming to a lot of guys who have never been, around it before. If you just come in with all this garbage, you can throw an infinite amount of numbers at a guy about the way they throw a baseball. There are really only a few that matter when you really break it down. If you really want to work on certain things and hone it in, and guys who are good at their job will help you find those numbers and what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just trying not to get overwhelmed, I guess. And for me personally, I tried to take it upon myself to understand what was going on before I went into it, before I got approached with things like that, just so I knew a little bit and I could maybe come at them with things I wanted to look for And so then you aren't maybe as overwhelmed. But there is so much data out there, and your pre-series meetings, they can give you every single thing if you really want on every single guy. You don't need that. You need maybe their first pitch swing percentage. Do they chase 0-2? Do they chase 1-2? Their stolen base percentage, things like there's a couple of things that really come into play, and it depends on situations as well. If there's guys in runners in scoring position, he swings at a lot of first pitches, as opposed to if nobody's on base, he takes the first 2 strikes. That type of thing. Those are things that are important to know. But that stuff can also add up in your head too. And when it comes down to it, as a reliever especially, it's about coming in and getting between 1 and 4 outs probably. And so when you boil it down to that, it's just come out with your nastiest stuff and attack. You got to believe your stuff's better than their stuff in the end. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Are there certain guys that like will translate like the numbers for you on the staff? Like just guys certain, just like to read the information and like regurgitate it?
We have like 3 or 4 staff members they're called like the analytics team or whatever. And that's all they do.
All they do is read it.
All they do. That's their job. And they present it to us or to our pitching coaches or hitting coaches or our managers, and we have meetings about it that way. Or if you know what you're talking about or know what you're looking for, you can go in and talk to them directly and get information that way.
Well, each person is different. Like you're going to know the information you need to get guys out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody pitches differently. Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
I definitely see that. I'm fascinated by it because, we never got to use it or play with it when I was, playing. So like, it's interesting to see how moving, your arm angle this way could have prevented, an injury or something like that, and seeing how your ball.
It's insane what they can tell you now, man. It really is. And you're absolutely right. It's invaluable and it's probably frustrating to think about from a person who, let's say a guy got hurt a couple times when he was in college, whatever it was. If some of this stuff had just been available to him, it wouldn't have changed. And so 10 years ago, this would have really changed the way the game was played. And it's obviously changing how it's played now. So it's just way different. Yeah, it's changed a lot even since I got into pro ball 4 years ago. Like, and the way it's incorporated and how it's everywhere and everyone uses it. But that's the thing I remember too, is now that everyone has it and everyone uses it, it's become mainstream and all that information is out there. Everyone has access to it. So you got to figure out ways to personalize it and prioritize it so that you get the best out of it because everyone else has it too.
Yeah, when I was talking to, Todd Jones, he kind of gave me this little holy trinity. He's like, the 3 things that are going to matter most are baseball knowledge, the kinesiology, how the body moves, and then analytics, kind of putting those all together to, to kind of make smarter hitters, smarter pitchers, and stuff like that. So it's
easier said than done, but if you can do it, it's a pretty damn good recipe. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. He said the kind of like little plateau of like going from a coach has kind of flattened, with all this new technology and information. Like you don't have to spend 14 years as a coach in the minors, to get a job. If you understand this information and can, understand it and, help give that information to your players, you become pretty valuable to any organization.
People will call them nerds, or they'll call them they're running baseball, this and that.
Man, I love Moneyball. They're not nerds.
Absolutely. You get guys that know what they're talking about and who have possibly played the game also. That's a sweet spot. Like there's a couple of them we have that it's really nice to see because it is frustrating sometimes when you get guys that didn't play and they come at it from a purely numbers perspective, a purely mathematical perspective. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't feel right, this and that. But if a guy can approach you with the same ideas, but kind of speak to you from experience or speak to you from just the perspective of a baseball player or an athlete, it can really, and that is hard to do. And it's, if you can find, that's why organizations are paying guys a lot of money to be able to do that because it's hard to find. It's hard to have guys, especially experienced, established big leaguers, listen to that. That's a special thing. And if guys are open to it, it can be really good for them, but guys will fight it. I mean, like it's that old saying, teach an old dog new tricks. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy to do. But if you can get guys to buy in and get someone who can approach it from, just a different perspective that they respect, they can really help people out.
Yeah, it's funny because I was listening to like CC's podcast. Yeah, I think he had Sonny Gray on, and they were talking about how like Sonny Gray, used all these analytics stuff at like Vanderbilt, and when he got to the Yankees, they just like didn't have the system to like help him out. And
yeah,
he was like, once we started doing all this information stuff, he was like, I didn't use that shit, man. He was like, he's just an old school guy. It's some guys you just can't, really
Yeah.
That's just not how they work.
I mean, but they probably figured out something just by chance that has really, really worked for them. And why would you switch it? If you can. And so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I can't blame a guy for not wanting to change in that aspect.
Oh, absolutely. Mariano, was one of the best closers with one pitch, and he didn't need any numbers to back it up.
Cutter's coming at you.
Just can repeat that motion, man, which is awesome. All right, my dude. Thank you, man. I appreciate this. This was awesome.
Yeah, no problem.
Always.
Fun. Good talking to you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.